everybody. Welcome back to Seasons Ebb and Flow channel. Thank you for joining us. I am very excited today to be interviewing Domenique Lombardo. She is a real estate agent, broker, and owner of her brokerage here in Orlando, Florida. And she has been in the real estate business for the majority or all of her career, I believe. And she has agreed to share a whole bunch of her experience and knowledge with us when it comes to divorce and things to be thinking about when you are going through a divorce related to selling the family home, staying in the family home, buying your new home, all those questions that are really hard, big decisions that you have to make when you are going through the divorce process. So, I'm Lee Wright. I'm a divorce coach, and I have this YouTube channel to try and share information with people because this is a very difficult process. And for many of us, we know nothing about it when we're entering it. And I'm hoping this channel can help answer some questions for people and make life a little easier. I'm going to turn it over to Domenique and just tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Hi, Lee. Thank you so much for inviting me on your channel to share some of my expertise as an allied professional with collaborative law. I was trained through Barry University with the Collaborative Divorce of Central Florida's Association group. And I was the first realtor that has been in this group, and I've been doing it for a long time. And having been divorced, and I did have an amicable and positive divorce, I wanted to be able to help other people navigate a successful outcome the best that we can. And being part of the collaborative team as an allied professional avails that opportunity to our clients.
Excellent. So can you explain for people who are not familiar, they've heard of collaborative divorce and they've heard of allied professional. Can you explain from your perspective what a collaborative divorce might look like and how an allied professional like you fits into that process?
Okay, so the collaborative team usually is the two attorneys, a mental health professional, and a financial advisor.
Neutral, right.
Neutral. And then they have allied professionals that we're not in the room per se, but we are part of the team to help. So being that the home is typically the biggest asset, and there's a lot of emotions that surround that it's very important that we have home consultations that I offer the clients free, that I'll go out to the home and whoever's still living there and have a home visit. And if it's appropriate with the permission of the parents, then I will sit down if the children are older as well, so that we can kind of navigate what the future next chapter looks like, as well as with the other spouse that is maybe living off site or potentially, paying half of that or all of that, until we can put together a plan with the whole collaborative team and what might need to be done from the very beginning, as far as any deferred maintenance, staging, and just kind of going through, like, what does the future lifestyle look like for both parties? Are we keeping the home? Sometimes that is an option. Sometimes it's a hard option, or maybe it's one that's looked forward to start a new beginning once the home is able to be sold. So during that consultation, we go through what the new lifestyle is going to look like for the entire family. And in the collaborative process, we are trying to have a collaborative, cohesive, and the most healthy departure as possible from all levels. That's what the goal is.
Right.
So that's why I do that and have the actual home visit in the very beginning, so we can put a plan together that people can have time to adjust to. So in doing that, usually, even though it could be a little premature, because sometimes it takes time, especially when they're navigating a divorce settlement agreement, they may put in there that I'm their realtor, but I do ask that they don't put in a specific price, because the market could change during the time, and then you have to go back and revise a marital settlement agreement. So we put in a market value. Sometimes that looks like maybe we have one neutral appraiser. If they're not going to go by me as their neutral appraising the value, they want another opinion, each party, or they can do one, appraisal aside from my comparable analysis and expertise in the market. So that
Okay, so just to cut to ensure that I fully understand. So what you're saying is when they're in the process at the mediation table writing out their marital settlement and the home is still not been sold, your recommendation is to put in the marital settlement that the price is to be determined by either a real estate agent or an appraiser or both, or two real estate agents and two appraisers, so that they, but not to put a price, but to put what professionals will help determine the price.
Yes, exactly. And it also can be determined by the time frame we need, whether a home, if we have time to sell it, or it has to be sold right away. So usually it's at market value, and making sure everybody's comfortable with it. But there
Okay.
also sometimes may need to be a time frame where if alimony is going to start being paid, where they can actually be able to qualify for a home, or
Mm,
maybe somebody's going back to work. So there's different nuances. So sometimes there may be a rental period, or there might be a period that they're staying in the home until there's a qualification, or we may need the other spouse on the deed for a portion, like for a period of time. And
yes,
then we have it in the marital settlement agreement when that exit time is. Uh,
right.
and so there's all different nuances with that, and also with the insurance on the property that sometimes people don't think about.
Right. So when it comes to, like, when you said insurance that people don't think about, what does that mean?
That just means that sometimes the insurance policy has to be revised depending who's staying in the home, and depending if the mortgage changes. Because in some cases, one of the spouses might be staying in the home or
Mhm.
for a period of time. And what does it look like as far as the financing and the insurance? So
Right.
I go,
Yeah. It's, and I think that agreement depends on the amicability. Like my ex and I, it wasn't, we were friends, but our divorce was pretty amicable and there was still trust. And so I got the deed to the house, but the mortgage was still in his name, and we agreed for 3 years so that I could get to a point where I could get a refinance a mortgage in my name. And he trusted that I would be making the payments and not ruin his credit. So, but I've heard since then that that's somewhat unusual. But yeah, I see, like, everybody can negotiate with each other based on the trust level that they have, but they optimally they can work together to make it a best case scenario for their family and to
that
get.
is that is the beauty of the collaborative divorce process, and that filters through
Mhm.
into the real estate transaction and process. And the other thing is also knowing what is their new lifestyle going to look like. And, if we do sit down with the children, what does that look like? Are we going to have a different dynamic where maybe they need to be able to ride their bicycle to their friends' homes, or, sometimes, what they are thinking may not be exactly what works out, that is the happier ever after for their new chapter.
Yes, yes. And if a client comes to you and says, I really want to stay in the family home no matter what, and you look at it and you can tell that they're probably going to struggle financially if they stay in the home, what types of things do you say to them to help them think through making that decision?
Well, we talk about not just the financial part, but also the work involved physically of taking care of the property. Now, maybe the other person did half of that workload or all of it.
Yeah.
So we talk about that. Like, what does that look like? What does the lifestyle look like? What time do we have? If they maybe want to go to a low maintenance, like a condo, but they have to realize then they have to qualify for that maintenance fee in
Mm,
their loan, and that means they're buying less of a home, like even if it's a condo or
wow.
townhouse. So
So when they're qualifying for a condo or townhome, they have to, in that loan, they look at the monthly payment for the HOA or the condo fees. And that means, since that's really expensive, that means the price of the home they're going to qualify for, or the price of the condo they're going to qualify for is going to be lower.
That's correct. And you're still going to pay it. It's just with a condo, somebody else is maybe managing that. And in some cases that might work well and maybe that is affordable and it doesn't hinder. So that may be a great option to have a townhouse or a condo. But in some
Yeah.
cases it doesn't, or they may be at the top of their budget at what, the market is and the area they want to be in. And then they need to have that affordability to be able to qualify for a home and not
Hmm.
have to be including their utilities and their lawn and those things and their internet because they're separate bills. So
Yes.
we go through all of that. And we also talk about that with their financial neutral and
Mm,
in their marital settlement agreement, what the need is going to be for both parties.
yeah. Okay. That's great. And what about if someone is getting divorced and they still have kids living in the home versus someone whose kids are pretty much ready to leave or have already left the house? And what are some decisions people should be thinking about when they're thinking about their next home, if they're going to be buying, or just whether to stay with kids versus no kids?
So I think it's a very personal decision depending on the situation. If that, first of all, if it's affordable for them to be able to stay in the home for both parties. And maybe sometimes I've seen it where they stay for a year or two. Maybe the child or children are going to graduate in a year or two and they don't want to displace them.
Mm,
And maybe it's cheaper in the house they're in if their interest rate's low or they bought a long time ago versus renting. So
yeah.
we to go through those things. And that's part of the consultation in the beginning when we sit down. And I think it is important at times to involve the kids because they're very nervous as well of where they're going and their whole life is changing.
Yeah.
Dynamic, at home. So, and also, emotionally, but also physically in their space. So usually that's when when we find out, like, where do the kids do? What is their activities? What does it look like for carpooling? What does it look like if they can, be close to where their social outlet is for
Mm,
both the parent as well as the children? So that's why I try to have that home consultation and figure out what's really going on.
mhm.
And then we just kind of, I have like a buyer's questionnaire that I have that, and I also have a listing presentation that navigates through the collaborative divorce process, which,
Okay.
but the buyer brochure that I have helps them to think about different things with their new lifestyle and then we kind of look to that to see what is going to be the best suited opportunity for them to move forward into the next chapter.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So, and now if we come back to when the couple has decided they're going to sell the family home, when they're making that divorce settlement agreement, and they have to like agree on the way the house will be, the showings, and what types of things should they be putting in their divorce settlement agreement if the selling of the home is going to be a part of what they're agreeing to.
There definitely has to be a component that the showings will not be hindered, that upon request with reasonable time, that we are able to have access to the home. That cannot become an issue, or it does go back to the collaborative team,
Mm,
especially if somebody's living in the home. So
yeah.
it has to be show ready. We have to be doing the appropriate things. And I do notify both parties at the exact same time of all showings and all feedback. And then depending on what the feedback is we're getting, then we determine together what we might have to adjust. Like maybe there is some deferred maintenance or something that's going on, or it may be a pricing issue. It may not be in a great location. Maybe it's in a super location. So as we get the feedback, we determine if there's anything else that has to be adjusted together, but everything is done mutually. So no one feels like anything is being done behind their back.
Mm, Yeah,
It's
that's
very important to maintain that trust. So there is no secretism. I am a neutral party, do working in their best interest for them to achieve getting the home sold and them moving forward.
yeah, that's I think that's wonderful to
Mhm.
keep it as trustworthy and that everybody's in the loop, everything's transparent, communication is clear to all parties, and so they can make the best decision for their family.
And I do understand too that it is such a fragile emotional time, even in the best scenario, it is. So I
Hmm.
understand that people's emotions go up and down, being that I got divorced and had an amicable divorce successfully, and we still are friends and talk. It's not everyone has that outcome. I wish they can, and that is the goal. But
Hmm.
I also understand the emotions go up and down, and I'm there for them, not as a counselor, but there to be able to help and be an understanding realtor that's gone through it many times with lots of my clients. Because unfortunately, uh, they say what half of people get divorced. So,
Hmm.
and I've been in the business for 36 years now. So, unfortunately, I have seen a lot of even my clients and people through collaborative divorce go through this. And it's my pleasure to try to help them navigate it.
Yeah. And looking at today's current market, like people who are going through a divorce right now, they might be saying prices are still pretty high, interest rates are high. I don't know what to do. Should I just hold off? Like if someone came to you and said, I feel like we should sell and I should buy something, but I don't know if this is a smart time to be doing that. What advice would you give them?
Sometimes we don't have a choice. The timing might be given to us.
Hmm.
And if that is the case, then we have to abide by what that is. If we do have that opportunity collectively, we would determine what the market is right now. So what you're saying is true, that the rates are higher than what they were, but not higher than history, higher
Hmm.
than what the lowest was ever in history. So
Right.
right now we're in a median market. When I started 36 years ago, it was 11% interest. So there's always a market. People are always buying and selling. But what I can say is sometimes we have to do what we have to do for our sanity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as the interest rates go down, right now we're still in a seller's market, but it's almost changing because we're in about about a 2 to 3 month cycle on the market at the moment, depending on where you are. But
Okay.
typically, and about a 4 month cycle, sales cycle is when it becomes normal and buyer and seller like almost equal. So
Uh,
we're a little more on the seller side still, but they're going to be a seller and a buyer most likely. So that's probably going to even out price wise.
yes.
But interest rates, once they go down, the prices will probably go up more, so
Mm,
it really doesn't matter if you really think about it, because they could
yeah.
refinance if they had to a little later down the line if they
Right.
need to. So I would marry, basically marry the house and date the rate and just see whenever it is that the right home comes up, if
Hmm.
we have time, but realize that as this year goes on, we don't know what's going to happen, not to be political, but we have an election coming. The interest rates are predicted to go down. But when that happens, there is a flurry and a surge of buyers in today's market that are waiting for that opportunity. And as
Yeah.
soon as that happens, we will likely have more people in the marketplace. And then the price goes up, the competition goes up, and it's harder for you to even acquire a home at
Right.
all because
Right.
really bidding hard. I will say I don't lose, but I have not ever lost for my clients, but it could happen as long as they're realistic, but they're going to go into some bidding wars probably. So it's better right now when the rates are higher, even though the prices are where they're at. The prices have come down just a tad right now. So
Hmm.
it winds up equaling out if you really think about it.
Okay. Gotcha. And when we were talking earlier, you told me about an example where maybe the family isn't ready to buy because they're still in the negotiation process with the settlements, but you were sending the family some home examples. And can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so I had this was a collaborative case, and I had it was a physician, and he worked, and she was a stay-at-home mom and worked very hard taking care of the home and her children. And it was very scary for them because they had a multi-million-dollar home, and they were going to have to downsize to 800,000 approximately, which to some people might seem like, oh, that's, not a big deal. Oh, that's like an upsize. But when somebody's downsizing that significantly, it could be a bit traumatic.
Mm,
So I did have my home consultation with the mom that lived in the home with her children. And she did want to involve her children because they were teenagers, and
mm,
they were influencing her some. I wouldn't say they should have the ultimate decision, but they
sure.
influenced some. And they thought they were going to move to a different neighborhood. And in sitting down, talking to them, really it was best for them to go to a different gated community where
Mm,
she could feel like the kids were safe. It was guard gated. And the kids could ride their bike when she had to maybe do other things and couldn't always be, transporting them around. But
mm,
in saying that, she never worked. So we had to depend on alimony. So
yeah.
in this particular case, there was trust, and the husband did have it in his name until the alimony was seasoned enough that she could then qualify for the house that was 800. And in that market, we were very blessed that that home was still available that she fell in love with, because I sent them homes, and I in the price range that we knew from the financial neutral and the lender that were going to be appropriate based on the future alimony. So
Okay.
once I knew what that was, I sent them homes, and she wanted me to send them to her teenagers as well. And what we said, and that was just their case, then they picked three homes. And I did tell the listing agent, that this is going to be a future sale. And at that time, things weren't moving like this. And I just said, it's going to be a few months out, but we'd like to just take a look at it. And we did, and the one that they all picked and loved just happened to still be available in the time frame. So they were very happy. But
Yeah.
that's the things that come to light when we're having those initial consultations and the ones going through the process till it's time to look and then move. And then I have all the resources they need to move as well.
Mm, yeah, that's great. That was like must have been so joyful for them to have this home that they found that they liked and it was still available. Like it was obviously just meant to be for them.
Yes, it was. And that's always the way it is. Sometimes people lose homes and they don't realize that it really it wasn't what was meant for them. I had it happen to me. I bid on a couple of houses that I didn't get, and for different reasons, but in reality, the home that I got was
Mm,
way better and it was amazing, and I still live in it today. And,
yeah,
so you have to believe that what's meant to be is meant to be for you.
right.
And, I'm going to negotiate the best deal that's possible in the scenario that we all collaboratively come together with.
Mm, yeah, I like that. Any things that you can think of off the top of your mind of things to avoid doing or uh, that kind of are not helpful if you're going through a divorce and trying to make big real estate decisions or with your ex?
Well, it's important to keep your emotion out of it because it is your biggest financial asset.
Mhm.
And during that emotional time, a lot of times people are scared and they act out of fear,
Yeah,
and or out of emotion. And it also is not a good idea to stop making the payments. Sometimes people try to dig in that way, and
yeah.
people's credit, and then you have no way to move.
Ah,
People don't think about that. Even for a rental, you still have to have credit checks and things like that. So it's
right.
important to keep everything stable for everyone and be thinking about how they would want to be treated, even when things might be a little bit volatile, because we all know during the process, no matter what, it's not easy. Whether you
Yeah,
want it or you don't want it, you're in the situation, and we want to try to make it the best we can.
yeah,
And being the biggest asset, sometimes it's the thing people fight over the most. And because it's the most physical, tangible thing with the biggest change involved as well. And
yeah.
most moves revolve around emotion. So I'm very good with it. And I know
Mm,
you are, and that's why people would want you as a coach, because there really is emotion involved. If you think about it, most people don't just move to move. They move because there's divorce, there's marriage, there's babies, there's um, people pass
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
or they lose a job, or they get a great promotion. It could be really great, or it could be really sad. I'm there for
Yeah.
people's families for generations. I mean, I've been doing it so long that I feel really old right now saying this, but I just did my a family 4 generations from the great grandparents, grandparents, parents. Oh, I'm sorry, the kids and all the way down to the great grandchildren.
Wow, that's
And I've done
amazing.
15 deals for their family, all
Huh.
different emotional things. And I was at their weddings, funerals, retirement parties, bridal showers, losing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I know a home, like there's so many family memories made in the home, so many different attachments to the home. Some people want to leave the home after divorce because they don't want that
Yeah.
day-to-day reminders. Some people desperately want to keep the home, or some people assume it's so important to stay in the home for the kids, which may be true, may not. But yeah, there's just a lot of emotions tied to the home for sure.
And sometimes it's for a period of time, like maybe their children is graduating in a year and it's
Yeah.
best for them to stay there for that school district or, their friend groups or whatever that is.
Mhm.
Um, So it just really depends on the scenario, really. But most times we try to make it where it's a good experience and let's look forward to a new chapter. If
Mhm.
we can't hold on to the past and where we were, because at this point, no matter whose decision it is, we're going into a new chapter of life. And a lot of times that can be a new, fresh beginning.
Yes, absolutely.
Alexa off. Sorry.
No,
The,
that's okay.
the
I didn't even
world.
hear Alexa. But yeah, to that point, I think it does, if you have kids, the age of your kids makes a difference. Like you might be want to stay in that home for 2 years, but know that once your kids leave to go to school or something and you're going to be an empty nester, that the home might be too big for you, or you might want to have the consideration of like, I might not want to even live in this state once my kids have left for college. So recognizing that these decisions might change with a year or two, depending on if your kids are young versus your kids being closer to graduation.
Right. And sometimes we don't know. And sometimes the opportunity is there that you can stay and
Hmm.
have that, availability. And it is important to recognize that up front. But that also can be dependent on what we put in the marital settlement agreement, because there may have to be something for that period of time financially or whatever it is. So that needs to be addressed up front so that we know that what that might change, the alimony amount might change, or the taxation might change, because that's another thing that happens is there is, sometimes capital gains tax, or there may be a benefit tax wise. So all of those things are the things we navigate through to have it be successful for all parties.
Yeah. So when
Alexa
you're
off.
sitting down with the financial neutral and the couple, you guys are looking at all the different financial impacts along with the timeline to try and come up with a settlement agreement that makes the most sense, even if it might be like a settlement agreement that has like milestones. Like once the
Yeah.
kids leave for college, then the agreement changes a little bit.
Exactly. That is truly the beauty of collaborative, that no one's dictating it to you, that
Mhm.
we can they get their input as a family that is separating with all of their professionals, including me, that we put together a successful plan that hopefully everyone can be happy with short term and long term.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's great. Um, Anything else that you can think of that I haven't asked you that you think is just important to mention?
I think that it just is very personalized and that I'm happy to go and meet with anybody and speak with them. The consultation is free to them and that we just go from there with, whatever the needs are. Because in our conversation, it's probably, there's so much to it, but I
Yeah.
think we covered a lot that gives
Yeah.
people food for thought, and then we move on from there.
Yeah. Actually, I just thought of one question. Pricing the home, if so a real estate agent comes out to the home and would give them an idea of what they recommend for listing the home. If an appraiser comes out, how is like an appraiser's estimate for what the house is worth versus like a real estate agent's recommendation for listing the home? How are those different? And what do they do with those two different pieces of information?
So typically they'll go with what the real estate professional gives them because we're pulling comparables. But if for some reason either of the spouses don't agree,
Mm,
someone has, like wants to sell it for more or thinks it's worth more, then I can, take into what they say into account. I'll take it into consideration and maybe reevaluate that. And I'll give my expert opinion. I've been doing it 36 years, so I'm pretty good at it. But some of the homes are very unique. And
mm,
that means there might be a little bit because we're more estimating value,
yeah.
where an appraiser actually goes in and does true adjustments up for different features of the home. Ours is a little broader. So if it's in a neighborhood that has consistent complexion of the homes
Uh,
versus custom homes throughout the neighborhood, it
uh,
makes it a little bit different. Or for instance, like I'm an expert in lakefront and luxury homes and golf properties, and some of my clients also have properties on the coast. So I also work between like Daytona and Sebastian, a lot in New Smyrna, and a lot on the Gulf Coast between Clearwater and Sarasota. So depending, like if we're having to sell other properties or investment properties, sometimes we're looking at the whole portfolio. Sometimes we're just having to have an appraisal on certain properties that are maybe unique, that different people have differing opinions. And even if you had multiple comparables or multiple even appraisers, may not come out with the exact valuation
mm,
that it's going to differ because there are adjustments depending on what comparables they picked when it's
yeah.
a unique property. And I do a lot of unique property.
Okay.
So sometimes we want that other opinion. Sometimes I even recommend it. It just
Yeah.
depends on the property. So the main thing is the actual adjustments, and the appraisers use what is needed for the banks for a loan. So when a buyer comes, it's
Mm,
going to have the guidelines, which aren't always ours. And
yes.
in reality, the house is worth what a buyer's willing to pay and a seller's willing to sell for. Some
Mm,
people are motivated sales, some are not. Some it's condition, some it's location. But the main difference is ours is a little broader, and an appraiser is by bank guidelines typically, if they're doing a market analysis, and they're going to do true adjustments for a certain dollar amount for a pool and for a dock and things like that, where we do it some but not to the extent of an
okay.
appraiser.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's really interesting. Good information for people just to understand.
Right.
Um, what is your website? And if someone wanted to learn just a little bit more about you, what is your website the best place for them to go?
Yes, and they can find me at Royalty. So that's Royalty, REB, which stands for Real Estate Boutique.com. So again, that's royaltyreb.com. And you can also find me on social media. So you can look me up on Facebook if you would like, either my personal name if you want to know a little bit more about me personally, and also has some of my real estate stuff. And the main place to go, though, would be my website. And you can also find there on the drop down menu, you'll be able to find the collaborative divorce page as
Okay.
well. And you can also click on that to go to Central Florida Collaborative and be able to learn more about that process if you aren't aware of it. And also, I have a concierge page that you can go to see some of the other professionals that I work with, like movers and inspectors and all type of professionals that I use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All of that information will also be in the description on YouTube. So if people didn't catch all of that, they can take a look at that information there. And I just want to thank you. I think this was really, really helpful for people to get just get their head around the idea of uh, real estate, dealing with the real estate transactions, which is just one piece of a big life transition when you're going through divorce. And I appreciate all your knowledge and expertise that you have shared here.
Thank you. It is very important, being a huge asset. And sometimes people want to use a neutral party, understandably.
Mm.
And I'm here to help and try to make it as seamless as possible and as easy as possible. And if you do look on my website, there's a bio video that you can click on as well to learn a little bit more. And I'll look forward to helping you and any of your clients or anybody that just is in need, even if they just want to talk a little bit. Thank
Thank
you
you
so much.
so much, Dominique. I really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you for the opportunity to be of service.
wonderful. All right, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.